Hello and welcome to another video on my channel. I want to do another review of Advanced Steamer, the Bricks add-on. Another one, yes, I think it's the third one that I do because, of course, Advanced Steamer evolves so quickly, and the last version was 1.4.1, something like that. So Advanced Steamer has evolved a lot since then, and I wanted to do little updates here and there, but so many things changes. So I'm gonna do almost a full review. I'm gonna go fast on a couple of things. You can always, of course, go back to my previous video if you want to have more details on a few things. So here is Advanced Steamer 2.5.3. We're gonna do a little overview of that. First of all, I want to show you the builder, Bricks Builder, before it's 1971, before the Advanced Steamer has been applied, specifically the builder enhancements. So this is the basic, of course, Bricks interface. If you want to add some things, you need to go there and simply, for example, add a block. Oops, the block is not inside the container, so I need to move that inside of it. And now from there, I can add other blocks, but I need to go back to my elements, add other blocks. And here we go. And then if I want to go there, for example, I can switch to grid view and I can change my grid and so on. So sorry, I think my computer is doing something in the background, so it's a little bit slow right now. But repeat 3, 1FR, for example, to have my 3 columns. And this is, like we can say, vanilla bricks. Now, this is the same bricks, the same page, but with Advanced Steamer installed. And for example, I can add another section. I had 2 blocks or 3 blocks right now, just like that. I can come here and make my grid. I could use the same tools here for the grid, but Bricks has a grid builder now. I can, for example, use that one here. And, whoops, sorry, my mistake. So pretty quickly, I can rebuild the same element, go a lot faster. So let's go inside Advanced Steamer into more details. Global settings, I have enabled pretty much everything right now. So these are the general elements that will add some elements here, but specifically other tabs at the top here. So we'll see them when we go through each element. Builder element, this is something that was not in the last review. So we can enable or disable some Advanced Steamer's element. So we can toggle on or off the dark mode and the dark mode button. So I kept them off because I don't have dark colors right now, but these will add some buttons at the top of the builder. You see that we can disable any bricks element. For example, if we already have the nested accordions, so if I don't want to have the regular accordion, same thing for slider, some other things like that, I can disable those and it will have less element in the builder itself here. So that will make my library, if I can say it like that, a little bit less cumbersome. If you know that there are things that you never use, this is a good thing that you can do. And of course, if you do so, it's probably better to simply come here and toggle that on so that it's not just hidden, but not loaded at all on the builder. Of course, like it says here, make sure that you don't have any page that uses those elements because they will disappear. The element, the PHP and so on will not be loaded at all. But this is kind of a builder tweak, and this was added a few versions ago, I think. But again, a good thing that you can do with Advanced Steamer. Permission here, you can set some of those inside of Bricks itself, but also here you can decide whether a specific role can upload CSS or JSON or not. I'll use them like you can see here. I'll leave them with the default, which is not activated. You can disable the ACF menu item in the dashboard. As you can see, ACF is on here. I can toggle it off. Why do we have that? Well, because as of version mixing versions of Bricks 2.5.3 right now, we have ACFs ACF Pro that is provided with Bricks. This is not something that the author, Maxim, really wants to push, and I understand him. And by the way, a recent release, I think it's 6.5 or 6.89, something like that, of ACF, doesn't allow him to provide the ACF Pro anymore free with his plugin, with his add-on. It will still be there, but you will be able to only use the free version if you have bought prior to April 1st, 2024. You will have access to that, but if you buy after that date, you will only have access to the free version. But of course, if you do have ACF Pro, you just install it with the license and it will be available here as well. So Bricks does use and does include ACF Pro, but soon you will not be able to use that anymore. Like I said, if you are a new buyer of Advanced Steamer. But as you can see, I bought it quite a long time ago and I do have access to ACF Pro. Right, so of course the option also to remove all the data, all the settings if you remove the plugin, and of course you can import and export the settings as well. You can also reset the settings to its default states. So let's take a look at a few of them. So the first one here, global colors. It has changed since the last review that I did. Now you don't have the global colors here directly in the panel. It used to be like that previously. You were setting your primary, secondary colors and everything directly here. Now it's directly inside the builder itself. If you want to, everywhere you will see that you can have your own, prefix. So if you use other tools like ACSS, things like that, it might help you to differentiate whether it's an advanced steamer, a prefix, or a feature, or if it's another framework. And that being said, advanced steamer can help you build your own framework a lot. I do use ACSS with Bricks with advanced steamer. Simply because it's more than just a framework. You have other tools with it. You have, for example, clickable parent, things like that, that you don't have in a regular framework. But still, if you just need basic features, Advanced Steamer has a lot of features for you for creating your own variables, your own fonts, and so on. So I'm going to go really quickly on those, but you have them enabled here. You also have the option for Gutenberg settings. So if you create your own colors, you can export them to Gutenberg if you want to, and it will use them as well. And of course, you can also remove the default Gutenberg preset. So let's take a look at that feature really quickly. So the color management, everything now is inside the Advanced Steamer menu right here instead of at the top here. So I might look for a few things here and there, by the way. Not used to it yet, but it is available here now. So the global color manager is right here. As you can see, by the way, we also have shortcuts now, so keyboard shortcuts. So I have created a few colors here. I have created a demo color palette. You also have the default one, which I removed, but you can always create your new color palette if you need to. So some tests, for example, and you can add your colors to it. So let's say if I want to have a primary, and then I choose the color that I need. I can type, I can select, and so on. So let me get rid of that one because I already have a demo one that I created. You see my colors, black, white, primary, secondary, and action. Not a good designer, by the way. So just for testing this color, I wanted to have colors that we can really stand out, let's say it like that, so that I can show you that these colors are also used in Gutenberg. So if I use any post, like this one here, for example, you can use the same colors as what you have created in Bricks or in Advanced Steamer. So that's the option that we just saw here about replace Gutenberg color palette. So you can use the same color that you have created in Advanced Steamer there. Yeah, next one, global CSS variables. So if I toggle that on, you see again a lot of options. These are all toggled by these toggles here, those switch element. So as you can see, if I remove border radius, for example, it's removed from there. Now it's there back. So you'll see often general options will toggle other panels here on the left side. So same thing here, whether we want to have an advanced theme or prefix or not. Base font is 10 by default, but I switch personally my Bricks settings to use 100% for the font size. So that's why I use 16 pixel instead. So you can, of course, always change that if you want to, the minimum viewport view and so on. So everything that is there is what we have here. So you have your own fonts here for the different heading sizes, and you have a preview of them right there. You have your also the base font size, and of course you can add new ones if you want to. Just click on that and say, for example, I don't know, font big, and you can decide the pixel value. Those pixel value will be replaced, by the way, with rem. It's just has a base to see the different sizes, but these will be replaced with rem in the output itself. So you can add and remove different rows for each of one that you create. And those typography settings will be available in your panel. So, whoops, I need to be on the right one, of course. For example, if I had a new text here, okay, and I want to style my my font size, I can use the size that I have created here if I want to. I didn't refresh, so the one that I just created is not available, but you can use those elements right here. Okay. Same thing for spacing. You have pre-made spacing gaps that you can add one if you want to. So again, these are in pixel, but they will be in rem in the output. You have borders. You can create new border. Note this one though, that it creates the entire value here. So for example, well, I'm gonna do the same thing here with box shadow. You have some radius here. I've put one that is for button, but it was by default something like, I don't know, 20 maybe, 20 pixel, 10, something like that for buttons. Um, Sorry for the little error. Sometimes I need to refresh, and that's not because of Bricks or Advanced Steamer, but I'm blocked in my output sometimes. Another topic. So let's say radius button here, for example, will be like that by default. We can set our box shadow. Like I said here, I already have a box shadow, but we have many things here. It's not just every output differently. Let's say, for example, let me be clear. If I have a button here, for example, I can come to my border here and add my radius if I want to. So let's add my radius button here. Okay, gonna save and refresh because it's using my old value. Looks like it's still using my old value. Probably I didn't save it here. Let me close that. Did it save it here or not? Let me just try to refresh that. Probably my button is too small, so that's why I see it like that. All right, sorry. I have a little bug here. I don't know what happened, but it looks like I had kind of a caching activated. Don't know why. So it seems to be working fine now. Hopefully it will stay like that, but it's nothing to do with Bricks or Advanced Steamer. But it seemed to be a little bit like I said, caching issue. Okay, so I have my button here with the radius applied to it. So of course, like any other setting, if I want to come here and change those, I can if I want to. Let's say, for example, to make sure that I have really rounded borders, rounded button. If I don't know if I can refresh this here. No, I have to refresh my page, but I should have a well-rounded button now, as you can see. So these are some settings for the border radius. Like I said, the box shadow, if I want to apply it to my button, I can come here as well to my box shadow, but I cannot go here and apply that variable because these are all separated. So in order to use a variable like this one, sorry, I'm gonna get that one out of the way. So in order to have this one used, for example, I will need to go inside my code here and apply it. So let's say, for example, I use the box shadow feature. I can use now my BS default like that. And as you can see now, I have a box shadow. So this is one way to use that. Of course, you can use the manual way if you want to as well, but with those variables here. So for some of them like border and box shadow, you will need to go inside the code editor in order to use them. So we also have the width. If you want to have a width for a full box, for example, we have our own custom variables, so you can create your own variable for any element. You can also import a framework if you already have a framework. For example, core framework can be used here, but of course you have other, you do have a Bricks add-on for that. And you have the theme variables that will be enabled on the builder itself that you can use here as well. CSS class is pretty close, so utility for the grids and the class importers, so that's why I show it at the same time. So you can create your own grid here. You can add new grids, of course, if you want to have, for example, a grid 2 as well. I could create that one. I can use the same gap. Let's say, for example, 2 columns, and let's keep the same minimum of 280. So I've created another grid for 2 columns. And you can import any other CSS file, for example, from Tailwind or something like that. Okay, so let me simply use, if I go back to my container here, instead of using the grid here, I could directly go and use my class that I already have here to create a 3-column grid. If I want to have a 2-column grid, I can use grid 2 instead. Now, it might not work because, of course, I will need to refresh my browser because I just created it. So if I use a grid 2 instead, whoops, looks like I didn't save. So let me just get rid of all of those. Grid, if I can know how to type. Grid 2, here we go. So grid 2, grid 3. And this is responsive, by the way. So as you can see here, if I have a minimum, everything will be fine. But here it automatically goes to 1 because I don't have the minimum for 280 for the 3 columns. You see here I have 2 columns because of the minimum set of 280 that we have here. So that's a great feature. Then again, you can change those values, of course, if you want to. So what I really want to focus on is the next section, which is the builder tweaks. If you're like me, you might use Advanced Steamer along with another framework. I'm using it with Advanced Steamer, Advanced CSS, ACSS. So that's why I usually don't use those settings here. I simply toggle them off, global color and those elements. I usually toggle them off because I'm using another tool like ACSS. So really up to you, but the builder tweaks themselves is already way enough to make Advanced Steamer a worthwhile product. So again, I won't cover each and every detail, but let me show you here. The top bar, of course, is what we have at the top here. So it has changed in 2.5. Now we have one Advanced Steamer menu because we had a lot of icons that were adding themselves to each side. So it decided to put everything inside the Advanced Steamer menu. So this is what you can have here. Of course, that means that everything is toggled on. as opposed to previously where you can choose what you want to have on or off with the icons. You can still add them, but they are marked as legacies, so they might disappear at some point. But of course, if you don't want the advanced themer menu and you want to go back to individual icon, you can also do that as well. For example, if I do that, I can refresh here and have a pretty similar experience to what I have previously. So you see a bunch of icons that have been added here, some icons there as well, all coming from Advanced Themer. But let's go with the new version. So I'm going to go with just my main AT menu here. And let's go through all of that to see the different tweaks that we have. So the first one, the structure panel, is the panel that we have on the right side here, of course. So let me, did I save? Yes, I did save here. So let me refresh to go back to what I had previously. Okay, so section here, these are toggling the section at the bottom. So the first option, the shortcut for creating new elements, that's what we have here. Everything for now is toggled on, and this is what we have here on the right side. So you see all those little buttons here. That was allowing me to go really quickly to add new stuff. If I go back from scratch, I can add pretty quickly a section. Automatically it goes to the container, by the way, so I can really quickly add new blocks. Add, for example, here some content. Let's say I add the same thing. Of course, usually what you would probably want to do is create one and then duplicate it. But just to show you how quickly we can create this layout. And so this is what I do every time now. I create a new section. I put every element that I need in every column, for example. And then I simply go back there. Let's say I want a 2-column layout. In the first one, I want to have a heading, basic text and button, and then the other one, I just want to have an image. Then I come back to my container. I create my 2-column layout, for example. So I switch to grid. I can select a gap, let's say medium gap. And I can also create a 2 grid. Of course, I could do that with a CSS or advanced themer with the variables that we saw previously. But let's say I want to do it like that. So 2-column in this case. So that's how quick and easy we can do that. And of course, we can just come and change the settings after that. Change the different elements. So these are really great shortcuts. You also have keyboard shortcuts for those, by the way, now. So really good thing. And if you now with 2.5, I think is something new. Just like for Bricks itself, if you click on the heading, for example, it's going to add the heading, but it's going to be, you're going to have the selected element that's going to be there by default. But if you shift click on the heading, it's going to automatically select that heading and show you the properties. So this is something new of 2.5. All right, so style and class indicator, blue and pink, and the width is 350. What does that mean? You see we have a little kind of purple or pink here. That tells me that I do have some settings enabled for the container. Like in this case, I have put some grid. It's on the ID itself. That's why it is pink. If I remove all of that and I go with my grid 2, for example, let me go get my grid 2. Now I'm using a class. So you see on the left side, I have a blue border instead. That shows me that this element has a class assigned to it. You can have both. By the way, if I go back there and I had something, I don't know, let's say color for the text here, it will also enable you this pink bar on the right side. And that tells me that I also have CSS on the ID level and some CSS on, or well, a class, at least one class that has been applied to this element. So a really quick view, a really quick way to know what you have applied to each of your elements. That's great. Structure panel. Okay, so styles and classes indicator. This is what we have just there. Resizable structure panel is this one. So nested elements, you can highlight them, and the parent element if you want to highlight that. When you select one thing, do you want to highlight the parent as well or not? Expand all children element. So you always have that button here from Bricks, where you can expand all the features at the same time or all the buttons at the same time. But what if you want to have, I don't know, something like that? Okay, maybe I'm gonna put it here. And if you want to have just one section at a time open, if I click on this button, it will open everything at the same time. If I have big, longer page, that might not be what I want. So what if I just want to have that section? Well, I have that little toggle now that I have on this particular section. And by the way, you can have that on subsection as well, so container and so on. That allows me to expand just that one and its children as well. Okay, so if I toggle everything back like that, and if I click on that, you see everything is expanded in that section, that one section. So this is this option that we have here. We can have a draggable structure panel. If you want to move it, you can double click on it. It's going to expand it like that, and then you can move it wherever you want. Except, of course, it needs to stay on the same screen. That's a limitation of Bricks, not Advanced Teamer itself. Double click on it, goes back to this place. Really optional, of course, but this is a feature. The icon shortcut as well here. So we have the element tags where we have some icon shortcut. Helper menu has been removed. It's now in the main Advanced Teamer panel, or drop down, I should say. And we have the developer mode here with none overview mode, which is a gray, or developer mode with colors and drop down. This is what I have here. So you see here, I have, for example, my heading that tells me it's an H3. It's in color. I can toggle that off with this button, by the way. So this would be none, nothing. This will be the gray one, and this is the colored one. So green means that you can change it. And for example, if I add, I don't know, div here, for example, is there anything that I can use that will not? Here we go. A rich text. You cannot change from a div to something else, so that's why it's in red. Everything else can be changed. So I can click on this one and go change it to an H2, for example. So instead of clicking it, going back here, changing the tag here, a lot quicker to simply click on it here, since I'm already inside the structure panel, and change it in this place. So really a time saver, again, from moving from left to right always. So that's why we have the colors, and we also have the drop down at the same time. Here for the contextual menu, so we are inside the structure panel itself. So when I right click, I will have additional elements right here. Now, everything is toggled off in this case, or almost everything, simply because everything now, again, is inside the Advanced Teamer menu. But personally, I think, and I'm going to keep those activated for now, because of course, since I'm already working in the structure panel, if I want to right click and hide this element, for example, it's going to be really convenient if it's inside the menu here. If not, I have to click on it, go here inside the, not this one, but this one, the other menu here, and hide this element here. Does work, but we need to move from one side to the other of the panel, which is what usually I want to prevent. So if, like me, you want, you can, of course, enable that again, and it will still be available here in the right menu, the structure panel, if you prefer. So this is really up to you. Of course, it's set as legacy, so might disappear at some point or might not. I don't know if it will stay there, especially for people like me. If we ask Maxim to leave it there, Maybe it will be there, it will stay there. But anyway, really up to you. If you prefer to have those into your right section, the structure panel, you can toggle them on here. They will still be available in the drop down, but it will be available here in the right click on the structure panel as well. So we have what? Basic text and adding converter. So this is something really, really, really cool. I have a basic text, and at some point I want to have a link, for example, I need to change that to a rich text. What do I need to do? Remove that, add a rich text instead. Not anymore. I can simply right click here, or sorry, I'm used to the right click now. I can simply come here and change it to something else. So I can go from, again, I'm used to see it here, so it looks like it's in this menu right there. I want to change that from one to the other. Now let me check. Like I said, I'm used to have the right one at the other side, so where is it right now? Plain class, find and replace style, style view, class converter. This is not where I was expecting it to be. Let me see. All right, my mistake, my mistake. I'm trying to go too fast and do everything at the same time. And I've not worked with 2.5 that much yet, to be honest. Those elements are still toggled on, so they are still in the structure panel. My mistake here. So if I want to change that one, this is where I need to convert, sorry. So I can convert to a rich text or to a heading. So I can just click there and suddenly, boom, that's a rich text now. And I can use my link, things like that. Or I can also switch to a heading if I want to, and suddenly this is a heading with all the heading settings. So switch back to basic text. Really quick and easy. Pardon me, my mistake. Forgot that it's still in the structure panel. I can move elements as well, of course. So we can move them with the move key here. You can use a keyboard shortcut, by the way. So you can move that to be up one level, down one level, up here also in the same hierarchy. Move up or down here. But of course, you can also, like always, do that by clicking and dragging, which most people will probably do. But if you have a lot of nested, you can also, or if you have a hard time with the moving with the mouse, you can also use those. Like I said, you can also use the keyboard navigation, I think, to do that. So I probably need a modifier key, which I don't remember by heart. There we go. So looks like it's the shift key. With that, you can always move them a different way. But undo a couple of those though. I don't know where I am anymore, so let's remove all of that. Okay. Delete wrappers and move children up. So this is another cool feature. So let's say, for example, I have a couple of blocks. Let's say my elements here. And maybe this one is wrapped inside another block. Okay. And I decide that I don't need that block anymore. Okay. What happens usually in Bricks, if I delete that, it deletes everything inside of it. What if I want to keep those because I just want to get rid of that block, but keep what is inside of it? So what I can do with Advanced Themer, I right click here, and I can delete, which will do the same thing as the delete button that I had. So if I just delete it, everything is gone. But Advanced Themer allows us to use that button instead, so it moves children up. So by doing that, it will remove this block here, but move everything one level up. So now I have kept everything, all my elements, except the block that I clicked on to remove it. Perfect. Great thing. I don't have to move them all manually and then remove my block anymore. The other elements are inside the advanced themer. So the addon show that I showed you previously. So I can go there, and this is inside the contextual menu. So I can hide the element here or show it again. So most of the things are inside the advanced themer main menu, but some of them regarding classes and so on and structure panel are inside the contextual menu here instead. Extend classes and style shortcuts. So when we use that, we can extend to another element. So let's go with the extend feature. Let me create 3 blocks here. I'm going to, let's say, want to use a grid 3 here on that. And inside that, I want to have a text, a title, of course, and a button, let's say. And I would like to style all of that. Okay, so I can create a new class for that. I'm going to show you 2 things at the same time. The class converter here. So I don't know if you're like me, but a lot of people in the Bricks environment will tell you always use classes. I don't necessarily agree with that because IDs are there for a specific purpose and it can be good. And if you know for sure, and you need to know for sure, of course, that you will not use that somewhere else, but IDs still have their places. I'm not a big fan of creating a class for something that I'm going to use just once and have a lot of classes with different names that I need to remember sometimes. Of course, we have the contextual menu and everything, all the tools and brick, but still, if I know that I'm going to use it just once. So I do put things on the ID sometime. Let's say, for example, in this particular case, I want to style my things and put some spacing here. So let's go in the padding section here. I'm going to use my CSS variable, which is another advanced themer feature, by the way, and expanded text by the way as well. You see that this is the uh, default bricks view. Let us really small space here to start and typing a variable. So by default, you can also toggle on in the advanced themer settings that you want to have a full or expanded text field here to type things. But I'm going to use that here. And let's say, for example, the gap, I'm going to use maybe medium gap again. There we go. And maybe put a border on that, something like that. I'm going to use a border here all around. Let's say a 3-pixel border. It's going to be a solid one. And let's use my primary color so that it stands out a lot. Great. Now I just know that, whoops, I want to put those on those 2 boxes. So first thing, I want to create a class. I want right click and copy and paste CSS, by the way, copy and paste style. Not a good way to work. So I want to change my mind and use a class. I don't have to redo everything from scratch. With the help of Advanced Themer, one of the great features that we have here, let me go back to my block, is that we can export those things. First of all, let me bring your attention to one thing. I have all my buttons here, the styles. I'm going to show that to you later where it is. But now I can quickly go from one style element to the other and have just that one visible at a time. Instead of the traditional way of going here and having everything and you open one at a time and then you open the other. Oh, by the way, this is another feature where I can just focus on the one that I clicked on. But usually in Bricks, you have all of them and they just toggle open and close. Just that one that you click. But with that, you have a quick shortcut to go to the specific element that you want. And of course, you have that little yellow bar that tells you that those 2 elements, the layout and the border, have some CSS applied to it or some options added if you prefer. Now, this is all on the ID level. I can say no because, of course, I don't have any class here. I can know here as well because I have a little pink border, no blue border, so everything is inside ID. I want to switch that. I can click here and export my ID styles to a class. Great feature. And click on that. I give it a name, let's say the famous feature card, like that. And I'm going to save that. And it has exported all my CSS to those. I just noticed that I had other feature class that I want to show you later on. So let me just pause the video and get rid of those. All right, so I had to delete a few classes just for this demo because I did some testing before. So now I moved all my CSS or all the changes that I made into a class instead. So you see now I'm still on the ID. Nothing is selected. I don't have my purple, my pink bar anymore on the right side, but I do have a blue one because I do have a class now applied to it, which is my featured card. So now everything is inside of that. I can lock it, by the way, if I want to make sure that I don't make any changes to it later on. Or I can, of course, leave it unlocked. Really good option here. Really up to you how you want to work. So this is another feature, the one that allows me to export an ID to a class. By the way, if you want to make sure, if you don't want to work with ID and you want to make sure that you never use that, you never use an ID, there's another option somewhere else. I think it's in the class and styles here. There we go. Where you can lock the ID level so you can never put any styles on the ID. You need to create a class each and every time, which is not something that I want. But if that's the case, you can toggle that on. So you will never be able to put anything on the ID level. Right now, the feature that I wanted to show you that we mentioned to export my elements now inside of for the other two elements that I have here, because I have two other blocks and I want those to have the same class applied to them. So I can click here and I can extend the classes and styles. If I click on that, you see I have my global classes and the styles. If I have some styles applied on the ID level, in other words, don't say so, I can export that to a specific kind of element. So in this case, it has chosen block because I'm already on a block and I want to export that to other blocks. I can export it to the DOMs on the same level. In other words, the block on the same level, which means those two blocks are on the same level as this one. Okay. Let me go back there. Or I can say the children of the current block, the same parent, and so on. We have a bunch of those. Or I can choose the entire page if I wanted to. But of course, blocks, that can be a little bit tricky because you can have a lot of blocks nested one inside the other. So I'm going to keep the same level. Do we erase the existing classes if we have classes on those elements as well? No or yes. I know that I don't have any others, so will make no difference here. But if you have some classes applied already to those blocks, of course you don't want to delete those. And I just click on extend and boom, now my two other blocks already have the featured card. They have the border. And the fact, by the way, that they all have a blue border around it, that's because another feature of Advanced Themer, when you select a class, it highlights everything at the same time. So you see that if you make some changes, for example, let's change the color here of my border to a different one, it shows you that it's going to apply that to all the other at the same time, as you can see. So every element that will be targeted by this change, let's say it like that, this feature, this CSS, is highlighted in blue. All right, so what else? Find and replace. So if at some point I want to change something, I don't know, I don't know if I have any idea right now. Let's change the, if I just remove those two and maybe duplicate that one, those two. And I want to change a property here. I don't know if it makes any sense. The style property here from primary to secondary, let's say. Okay. Never tried it, so live demonstration. If I want to do a find and replace the styles, I don't know if that will work with that. Search value here, so primary, and I want to change that to secondary. Which properties? It was called styles. I don't know if I'm going to see that here. No, styles is not available. This is what I was afraid of. Let's say all properties. Let's see. I have a button. We'll see on the whole page. Let's say, do I want to include the value in the global classes? Let's say yes. Let's try to change all the primary for secondary if it works or not. So no, it didn't work in this specific case because the style property is not there. But let's say, let's change the alignment of all my basic text. Do I have access to that? Let's change the text align. Oh, let's change that here. I have the gap, gap M. I'm going to change that for a different one. So let's do it like that. Find and replace. I hate it when it does that. This is something that you might want to change next time. Every time I try to click and select something, it closes the panel. I really hate that. So you need to click and select manually. Don't try to click and drag because it's going to close everything. So it was 80 gap M. I hope I don't have double dash here. And I'm going to change that for 80 gap, let's say XL, so we really clearly see it. And all the properties and all the categories, of course, I can change that for just the, I don't even know the properties, so I'm going to leave it, everything. And I'm going to do that on the entire page, find and replace. Here we go. It has changed that now for XL instead of M for the padding value. So this is a quick way to finding and replacing elements, styles, and so on. Class converter, I can convert a class to another one as well. So I can convert the class to something else. So if I click on that, you see here, I have my block. And this is sometimes called the BEM modifier or something like that. So I have my block because that's the name of my block here. Simply, I have a heading, basic text and button. So again, if I go back here, class converter, now you see I have the same block, but it can rename my heading for block heading, text basic, and button. Of course, I can toggle that off if I don't want to rename that specific element, or if I want to change the base. Oh, sorry, again, this is something that needs to change. If I want to change that for a featured, remember we call that feature card. Then I can use feature card here and it will rename all the blocks and the elements inside the block to heading, text basic, and button. Maybe just text here would be enough. So I can change that if I want to. So I have my heading, text, and button. I can change the class category. I can copy the ID. If I have any styles applied at the ID level, do I want to copy that to the class? I'm going to say yes, even though I know that I don't have any. Or I can say yes unless it already exists. If I have some ID and I want to copy that, do I want to erase the ID styles? I would say yes in this particular case, but I know that I don't have any, but let's say I would say yes. And I'm going to click on create classes. It has created 3 classes for me. So if I go here, my block here has the feature card, and already had that. But now we have heading with a feature card heading. We have the basic text with a feature card text, and we have the button with a feature card button. And of course, if I had applied any styles to it, then it will be added. By the way, well, I don't know if it's a bug here, but I did remove the styles, so it also removed the style here from that button. So maybe that's something that you want to be aware of and maybe toggle that off the next time. But if you are using the styles for button, that's the only drawback here. The style overview that we have there as well. So, oops, style overview here is another panel that's great as well. As you can see, well, let me go back to the block here instead for my feature card. So that shows me everything that I have applied on this particular element. First of all, it shows me if I have a pseudo class, which is, for example, if I have something on the hover or the active, it will also show them to me. If I have something on the class itself or on the ID, so you see on the ID, I have absolutely nothing styled here. But on the class, my feature card class, If I had more than one class, by the way, I can select them. Okay. So in my featured card, I have all of those settings applied to it. I see my desktop, tablet, mobile landscape, and mobile portrait view. So I also see what I have for each of the breakpoints. And not only do I see them, but I can change them. So for example, for the border here, if I want to change that back to, I don't know, primary, I can come here and change this value here, and it will be applied at the same time. That's great. If I want to go back to gap M here, for example, something that I can do as well. So I don't have to go in my properties panel, sorry, to do it. I can do it right from here. And again, I can do it for specific sides as well. So for example, I don't know, if I wanted to have a padding top different on landscape here, I could do absolutely that. So AT, for example, gap, let's say small one, X small. I think we have something like that. Here we go. So I have a smaller padding top on mobile here. I can absolutely do so here. Shows me the bricks properties, by the way, that I'm changing, but you can also see the CSS, the outputted CSS as well. You see that on mobile landscape, it has changed the feature here. So if I close that, now I can see if I come here, my different elements. Okay. I have changed that for back to M. I think I made a little mistake here, by the way. M, not ML. Okay. And if I go to the mobile here, it has the gap XS applied to it instead of the M that I have everywhere else. So this is really great as well. Component class manager also is available here. So component class manager here. So you see, for example, if I want to see all my classes that I have, particularly in this case, I have created those 4 here. But you also have, for example, you see that I add a CSS created previously, so they can appear here. So these are categories, groups that I created before. So let me just delete those. They don't exist anymore. All right. So I can also do a bulk action on different things. So if I want to have, I don't know if they're gonna appear here, but if I want to put, okay, they don't appear anymore. So let me just refresh that by going here and activating my ACSS. Because they show in a certain way, but not entirely, if I can say it like that. I'm going to refresh my page. And go back to this component class manager. So let's see if I want to toggle all the group together. All you see all the automatic CSS are grouped already together, but I want to put all the buttons in a group. Let's say, for example, I can go inside bulk, and you see there's a lot of things that we can do here. For example, I can target all my featured classes, featured card here, for example, and I can rename all of that to a new string. I can filter that only for the unlocked one or the ones that have styles and so on. I can do a specific action, so that depends on what I have selected here. So if I say rename here, of course, I'm going to rename from one string to another one. I can add a prefix or a suffix to it. If I want to duplicate it, I can duplicate those. You see what's going to happen if I click on duplicate classes and so on. So let me just go with group, for example. And as I said, if I want to group all my buttons, my button classes together, are they button or BTN? Why don't they appear anymore? Looks like I need to refresh in a certain way. Oh, my SCSS classes don't appear yet. What's going on? Again, sorry, this is certainly a kind of cache that is applied here. Let me try to change that. Okay, my mistake. I selected a class here and I went here. So this is the component class manager. This is not the global class manager. So it only selects what I have on that specific element and its children. So that's why I see only featured card. My mistake. I'm used to see the global class manager that I can still access with my AT menu here. And now it shows me everything. You see my ACSS now are there as well. So this is my mistake. But again, I'm going to do this, what I wanted to do, but in the global instead. So if I want to have all my buttons elements together, I can group all of them together. So, whoops, I should change that first. And all my buttons, you see, well, I also have some button grid here. So if I want to have that, that's okay. If not, I can just use the ACSS prefix. ACSS. What did I do wrong? ACSS, oh, dash button. ACSS dash button. Here we go. I can group all of them together. So I'm going to click group classes. And then if I go back to my overview, you see that I have created a group. Well, I don't see it now. Did it work? Let me try to do it again. ACSS button. Maybe I went too fast. Everything is selected here. All the classes, all the groups. Assign class to the following group. I don't want. I want just to group the class together. Okay, successfully assigned to it. And looks like it doesn't show. I'm going to save post and come back here. Maybe that's what I need to do. And again, this is something that I'm not used to really use so far. It used to work. Don't know what's going on here. Usually it does work perfectly fine. And of course, like always, that's when you try to demonstrate something that it doesn't work. I did that just before doing that video and it was working perfectly fine. So I don't know what's going on here. All right, so I have some strange bugs on my installation. Don't know if it's InstaWP that is playing tricks on me. So anyway, I decided to recreate the entire website. So hopefully the problems are over. And like I said, it's not a CSS, it's not AT, it's not even Bricks. So I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, so this was the class manager, so global class manager in my case. And I created the button group, put everything inside of it. So let me go back to where I was, if I can find it again. Global class manager. Okay, so this section was done. Classes and style. I have activated everything except the lock styles on ID that I explained previously. So by default, by default, everything will be reordered alphabetically with that option. We can group them by lock, whether they are locked or not, all the locked together and all the unlocked together. CSS variable picker is the little button that you have seen previously, that little kind of a down arrow like that. This is my variable picker. And by the way, it does take into account other variables that are not necessarily advanced themer. Suggestion drop down for CSS variables. So when you start typing, let's say it, I don't know. Let's say here, I know that I have font sizes. Let's say if I start typing font, as you can see, we have a drop down here for the different sizes. Okay, so that's the option that we have there. Autocomplete suggestion on over as well. I like classes. It highlights all the classes together when we select one. Count classes and navigation. I don't know if it's still available. I guess so. Yeah, here. So I have this featured card heading here. I don't remember the one. I think it's one class applied. And we have this class used 3 times because I have 3 groups on the page. The first one, there's no hover for it. I think that means that it's the only class that is selected right now. Something like that. Anyway, this is with advanced teamer as well. Count classes. So the number of times that class is used on the page, clicking the counter will scroll the page. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it counts as the class, but this is the times it is used on it. All right. Preview class on over, class preview on over color, sorry, and class preview on over. So for example, if I go there, when I mouse over, you see we have a preview. Same thing for color and same thing for variables as well. So font size, as you saw previously, when we mouse over it, we can see that. Of course, people use with advanced ACSS, other framework like that. They often do so as well. Style indicator in the media query panel. What is this one? New bar indicator. Okay, this is what and the media queries. Okay, yeah, this is that little yellow bar here that shows me that in this particular media query, I have something set. Let's say, for example, that I want to have that a lot smaller on mobile devices. Let's see if I change it like that. Now I should have an indicator that I have something set on that specific size as well. So I have font H3 here and H6 there. Doesn't show it to me. It's supposed to. Let's see. I think it's style indicator in the media query panel. Which both ready and style on class, so it should work. Again, I have some special problem here. I don't know what's going on. Honestly, I had never had any issues with those features, and I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if I should install Bricks on another installation just to show it to you. But usually this is highlighting on that yellow underline that you saw previously on the desktop. I should have that on every element. Here we go. There we go. Now it shows. So it looks like there was a little bug. Maybe I should deactivate and reactivate Advanced Steamer. I don't know. But here we go. So now it shows me that I have a style applied to that specific mobile element there as well. So this is a copy, by the way. I have copied this site from a starter site. So looks like there might be some little elements here that I need to toggle on and off for it to work as expected. So maybe that's the reason I didn't start from scratch. And 2.5 is a huge improvement. So this might be the reason why something's not working here and there. So anyway, breakpoint indicator. Okay, you'll see a new small device icon next to each group that has styles on different breakpoints. So if I go to my heading here, size, there we go. I don't know if I'm going to see that here. I don't see any. Okay, there we go. This is where. So these are the little two icons. So same thing as I have here, the little kind of a yellow underline. I have the same thing here. So it shows me that on my desktop in mobile landscape, I have some CSS applied to it. So I could go do one or the other or both, like in my case. So I can see which one has some classes applied to it. There's a little bug here, maybe. Looks like when I move to H6 to the mobile, it works, but I cannot go back to desktop. Seems to be a little bug here again. Maybe because I need to, again, let's see. That was the one. Let's try to deactivate and reactivate it. So again, won't do that on a new installation, but since I copied from an existing installation, maybe that's the source of all my issues that I have right now. Let's see. No, doesn't go back to desktop. So a little bug here. There might be some little bugs here and there. It's a new release of 2.5, like I said. Major new release. lock class, whether the class is locked or not. So this one is not locked. If I locked it, you see it's turned red first of all, and my little icon is locked here and is red as well to show me that this is a locked class. So I cannot do any modifications anymore on that specific class. I can always unlock it, do some modification, and lock it back, of course. Autofocus on the first unlock class. So if I had many classes for this element, when I click on it, it will go automatically to the first unlock class that will appear here. So I don't have to click on it to change it. And to format your control value, this is what we have here at the bottom. So it goes with what we have here. So users of ACSS might be used to that. I can have some calc and min-max, things like that, variables. So when I start typing and autocomplete those things, and I also have a pixel to rem converter. This one use the R10 or things like that. So let's say, for example, I want this text. I want to change the font size to, let's say, I don't know, 20 pixel. So what will it be? Sorry. What will it be in EMs? So if I use the tab key, you see it's 1.25 rem. So it's automatically converts from pixel to rem. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people will go inside the settings and, well, not go inside the settings, but use the default settings of Bricks, which is 62.5%. And it works just fine most of the time. But if you use some plugins that are also adding some CSS, then there might be some problems. So I like to go and put it back to 100%. I did change in Advanced Themer, if you remember, the pixel size for being 16 when we were in the global, I think, variables here. Oh, of course, I did reinstall, so I changed it here to be 16 instead. And so that might be the reason why my text is so big. By the way, let's refresh that. Should be a little bit smaller. There we go. So, but the problem and the reason why we use 62.5 is that it's easier to calculate. For example, 10 pixel is simply 1 rem. 25 pixel will be 2.5 rem. So it makes it easy to calculate. But if you want to go back to 100, which is 16 pixel by default for 1 rem or EM, then it makes it a little bit harder to calculate. For example, 32 will be 2 rem, 48 will be 2.75 probably, something like that. So if you don't want to calculate those things, this is where you can use a tool like what I just showed you, where you can specify direct, let's say 18 pixel here. So R18. And when I use the tab key, it will convert that into rem or EM in other cases. All right. Advanced CSS editor here. So this is for the advanced CSS editor that comes with Advanced Themer. Has nothing to do, by the way, with ACSS. That is something completely different. So it will include the page CSS, the global CSS, the child theme, the imported, and the IE assistant if we toggle all of that. What is that? Well, let me go. And it should be here, the advanced CSS. So I only have some pages and global CSS right now, so that's why only those two are available here. But of course, if I had theme CSS and so on, they would also appear there since they are activated, and my IE assistant is there as well. So I can see, I can modify the CSS directly from there. If you are comfortable working with CSS, you have everything in the same panel, so that can save you some time as well. All right, elements. Enable lorem ipsum generators. So when you have some text like this one, for example, you have a little button here that we can add dummy content. So when we click on that, it generates some lorem ipsum. So we have the choice here between lorem ipsum or actual dummy text. So this is the button that we have for rich text, for basic text. I think we also add that yet for the headings and so on. Text elements. Disable the pin icon on the element list, so it is disabled by default. Remember, when we mouse over some elements here, we can pin them to have them at the top. So I like to disable that, but of course, if you want to keep it, you can toggle that off. Close all open style accordions by default. and inactive style accordion. I'm going to show them together. Remember, when I click on something here, it closes the other. I don't see, for example, the typography. I don't see the border. So they're not only closed, but they are also hidden because I toggled the both option. So it allows me to focus on the element that I clicked, the specific style that I clicked. So I like it like that. Disable elements outline when style borders and box shadow. So remember, if I click on an element, let's say, for example, the heading right now, my feature card heading, you see that I have a blue highlight for all the elements, like I mentioned before, because it shows me what elements will be modified if I do some modifications here. But of course, for something like when we have borders like that, it can make it a little bit tricky if the border already has a blue border around it, so we can hardly see what we modify. So this option, as you can see, allows me to hide that blue. We have it on the other two, but not on that one. So if I modify the border here, especially if I put it a lot smaller, it's gonna help me a lot to see what I'm actually doing. With that option toggled off, it will be pretty hard to see the modifications that I do on the border. So that's what this option is. This one. Elements, column, and collapse, expand. To control the grid's column, number, and collapse, expand the different categories. Okay, that's the grid column here that we have on the top. So if I go back to my elements, you see those columns here. So you see I have 3 columns. So this is what controls that. I can have up to 3 columns here, up to 4, sorry, columns here. I can also collapse and expand all my columns instead of doing it one by one, which is pretty tedious. So I can just open the one that I need. So those are these elements. So let me go back like that. So that's it. Enable column and expand. We have the default here. I'm set that to 3 columns in my case. And we can also, and I think it was somewhere else. There it is. No, that's the offset. The offset is for the buttons that we have here so that they're not on the top. But there was, and I think this is somewhere else, there was a, for the, I don't know if it was here or what. Anyway, there's an option to specify the width, but of course I can always resize it by dragging. And of course, when we have more than one column, more than 2 columns, we might want to expand that a little, depending on how many text you want to see, how many of the icons you want to see. Superpower the custom CSS control. So let's say if I go here, we have a superpower CSS. So we have a bunch of buttons here that allows us to have many options for CSS. I think I had some custom CSS, but I removed it probably. So here we have the root element that will automatically have the new root with the percentage signs right there right away. We also have the comment selected code. So if I select that, I can comment it right away, just one click. Pretty great thing as well. We can add a component to selector. So let's see. I have the feature card heading here. So let's see if I had something like that. And maybe I can add the component selector here as well. So it adds the one that I have right now, or not necessarily right now in this case, but the one for the classes, because the class is not selected. Beautify CSS, it will format the CSS that I've put. You have the shortcut style, cheat sheet, not cheat sheet, but cheat sheet. So that allows us to have those elements here. And you see, so for example, if I use the R and tab, it will put the root, just like when you click on that, but without the 2 accolades. If I put H and tab, it's going to do a root over and so on. As you can see, we have a bunch of those. So RCL for, for root last child. There's a bunch of those. Query media also. So let's say query for 80. And and the tab. So I guess let's put it. Never tested that. Here we go. No space. So query 768 tab. It does media query. This is great. I should enable the shortcuts because I don't use a custom CSS enough to remember all of that, but this is really some cool things for media queries and so on. You can also use the capital letter instead, and that will have the brackets. So of course, if I use the capital R, let's say an F, then it's going to use the percentage sign, sorry, and put the curly brackets. If I just use R F, then it's not going to put the curly brackets. So I guess it does that for everything. Q768 will add also the curly brackets. While if I do the same thing without the capital letter, it will not add it. Doesn't have the root even to that. So capital letter, always better. Then we have the full screen. If we want to toggle full screen to have more bigger view to code. And we can collapse that because, of course, the CSS panel is always bigger than the rest of the panel. So if we don't want that, we just want to put a little bit of code, then we can toggle that like that. So this is the superpower CSS. If you type a lot of CSS code, this by itself can be really interesting. Increase the text control sizes. This is for the text controls. So I think it has to go with all the text like that here that are bigger. Let me just make sure. There's so many things I don't remember them all by heart, as you can see. The text control field where you add your custom values will be increased from 30% to 50% and leave more room to write CSS variable and event CSS function. Okay, the text control fields where you had custom values. So things like that, for example, the text here, I guess is bigger when you use that option. Honestly, I always use advanced themer, so I don't even remember what it's bricks without it. So don't remember exactly how it was without this feature toggled on. Increase the text control size. That's what I just saw. Reveal class icon on over. So when we mouse over, okay, if we toggle that off, you see all the options that we have here, and especially here. And there are some others that we can toggle on. It takes a lot of space. Remember, before we add those menu here and that, there was even more. So at some point, it was pretty hard to start to see or to type class names and so on. So now with that option, it only shows when we mouse over it. So when we don't mouse over it, we can see the entire name, and it appears when we mouse over it. So that's the option here. If we don't toggle that on, those icons will always be there. Expand spacing controls. So if I go, let's say, to my block here, you see the expand here. As I showed you, this is the default one. Not a lot of space, especially on each side. To type variables, so with the above option, it changes that for those expanded fields like that. Makes it easier to type. But as you can see, the buttons there, you can always move from one to the other if you want to. The grid builder. This is a new thing. This is a wonderful thing. If I create a new grid, let's say, with a lot of CSS, a lot of blocks, I should say. I have 6 blocks now, and I can come here and toggle on my grid. Of course, we had the grid 3, if you remember. But now if I toggle that to be a display grid, I have my little grid builder icon here that I can click on and see a visual grid builder. Of course, when we have just 3 columns, for example, 2 rows like it is right now, we can change a gap if you want to. Of course, this is a little time saver, especially if you are used to the code that you need to put there. This is not a huge time saver, to be quite honest. But when you start to build more complex layout, let's say if I had more like that, okay, and you want to start, I'm going to reinitialize the grid. You want to start building more advanced grids like this one, for example. If I take this place here And if I want to, let's say, expand this one here and expand this one here. Whoops. Whoa. What did I do? I'm going to reinitialize. I want to move that one to take those 2 blocks here. Let's say 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to put 4 rows maybe. So we can, there we go. We can play with that better. There, this is what I wanted to do. All right, so I have 1 big block here and 2 bigger blocks here. All the others are small. We can also reorder them if we want to. There's a lot of things that we can do. And it creates for us the column start, column end, and things like that. Let me go back to rem, for example, for the spacing. And as you can see, we can have a easier way to see the grid. Of course, when we get out of that, we don't necessarily see that well, those lines. I don't know if you can see those. We have little lines, little separator, gray line, that shows me the block. Let's say if I put all my blocks here to have a little class, let me add classes to those. Okay. Let's say oh, this is not what I wanted to do. Let's say I use the class converter here to create some classes. Let's say, whoops. Always try to select, and this is where things go wrong. I need to change my habit. Let's say this is grid, okay? So let's call those grid blocks. I'm gonna use that class, that's okay. So I just want to put a background color so that you can see better the different elements. So here we go. So now you see that I have the layout that I already chose in the grid builder. Makes it so easy to do so, to play with that, to make changes as well if I wanted to. I'm going to reset now the text that I'm using classes. So it will use custom CSS. So let's reinitialize the grid. You can generate bento grid also. So depending on the amount of elements that you have, it will give you different options. Let's say I'm going to put more columns and rows so we can have more options for the bento grid. And it's going to detect, as I said, that you have using classes. So it will put that as custom CSS instead. So if I apply grid and close, you see here it has created some CSS for me directly in the grid there because I have a more advanced layout. Okay. So this is for the grid builder. We can build pretty advanced stuff with that. Here we go. I wanted to show you some grids that I've built in the past, playing with that. So I played with the grid here, and I've built some pretty advanced, as you can see, grid. This one is not the most advanced one, but just to show you that we can go really far using the grid builder. It's really easy. I'm used to work with the Pangra one, and also Macro Teamer has a grid builder, but this one I think is even more advanced. So you see, I can really build really advanced grid system. In this case, we have 15 blocks. So you decide the number of blocks and then you place them as you see fit. So we have some pretty amazing ones like that. This one is pretty basic, but still really interesting. So you specify the number of columns and rows, and then you can specify also, you can come here and change the width of each section. Can't go really into details here about how grids are working, maybe another video later, but you see we can change the fractions to make them the column, if you prefer, smaller or bigger, and then you can play with the grid like that. So can build pretty amazing stuff using that in a visual way. What this one? This one seems to be corrupted. I did many tryouts. So yeah, sometimes it's better to sometimes when you try to edit a grid, doesn't exactly give you back what you had, especially with older one like those. So bottom line, by the way, if you start editing a grid, okay, if you use the grid builder, let me rephrase that. If you use the grid builder to create a grid, and you can do so, by the way, as you can see for different screen sizes, don't ever go back and change those elements here, because it will conflict with what you have in the grid builder. If I change that here, for example, for 2 rem, it will work, but if I go back to the grid builder, it stays at 20 pixel and it will override what I just did. So don't change anything here. If you want to change something, go back to the grid builder and do the modifications there. Okay. All right, let me go back to my installation here. Copy and paste interactions and conditions. So I don't have any interactions and condition, but you can copy and paste from one to the other. We have a box shadow generator. So a little bit like the grid builder, we can create box shadows here. So let's me go there, for example. I'm going to click on that little kind of layer button here to see my box shadow generator. And then you can play with different elements that we have here. You can change for radius, the color, and here we have the box shadow itself. And maybe use a different color. Let's say you can use an inset one. Maybe less blurry. And you can change also the different steps. So you can have, you have some precepts, by the way, that you can use also. Click apply. And here with my shadow, remove settings. Whoops. You can have layers, as you can see, to have steps. So you can have many layers and you can change the type of shadow from one layer to the other. So you can have many levels. You can have your own manually here. So this is pretty advanced. Now, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to make something that is not logical at all, but each layer could have its own color. Things like that. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to see it well because of the blur and so on. But anyway, you can play with that and generate really special box shadow using that. Okay, strange in this case, but anyway, you see the potential here. Advanced text wrapper. This is something really cool as well. So maybe you've seen when we have some basic text, okay? And if I want to, I don't know, add a link or just change a part of a heading, let's say, for example, like that, and I just want to change the word heading here. Of course, when you have basic text, you can always switch to rich text and do that. But sometimes you just want to change one word. You want to put a link or something like that. Don't necessarily want to use a rich text to do that. And of course, on headings, you don't have the choice anyway. So what is exactly this tool here? This is what we have here, the advanced wrapper. So you can put different tags here, so HTML tags, and you can choose your own if you need to. You can choose whether you want to add CSS class to it or inline styles. And you can wrap and unwrap. So for example, if I use my heading here, my heading word, and I want to use a span tag with, I don't know, maybe a variable color here. Let's say the, I think it was AT primary color, like that. And maybe, I don't know, I could put some styling if I want to. So text transform, I hope I do it right. Let's say small caps. Okay, so when I choose my word here, I just click on wrap, and it's going to add my span tag with those elements inside of it. Okay, so looks like I didn't do the right thing here. AT primary, I don't even know if I use the right things. Anyway, and you can also unwrap. So if you select the same element here, you can also unwrap by removing what you have put. I think I just saw what I did when I recreated my elements here. I didn't have any prefix, so let's say I'm gonna put some prefix here and there to be like that because I recreated the site as I mentioned previously. So that's why these weren't working. So now I'm gonna save that and refresh probably because of course I just did it. All right. Okay, I am editing here. I don't know, did I change something? Crazy me, I used a variable for the class name. Oh, I'm doing two things at the same time. So let me go back. This is a class name here, so I don't know. I don't have any class. But if I want to use a variable, let's say, I don't know, color. And there, I'm going to use my variable AT primary, let's say. This makes a lot more sense. I don't know if there's any class, don't have any in mind right now, so let's just do this like that. There we go. Right, so are my endings the right way? Again, I change. Okay, I guess I guess I was using some did I make any? There we go. Doesn't work anymore because I changed. Here we go. My mistake because I didn't use the AT prefix previously. All right. So that's internal, that's in the text, so it doesn't apply to the others. Of course, it's not part of the CSS itself. There we go. So this is the, I wasn't the bullet tweaks, the advanced text wrapper. Icon shortcuts here. The new class contextual menu is the one that you saw since the beginning. When we click on it, we have the new class contextual menu. It was not there in previous versions. And this is why we have a bunch of things that are legacy, just like the advanced themer at the top here. A lot of things are now in that drop down. Left tab shortcuts. This is what we have here as well. So this is what I showed you, these shortcuts that I showed you previously. The pseudo elements shortcuts. Those are the pseudo elements, by the way. It goes with that. So at the top here, for example, on the, I don't know, on the button itself, let's say, you can toggle on the overstate right there. A quick way to do so. Now I'm inside overstate. Let's say that I want to change, I don't know, the background color when I mouse over it to be my primary color. Okay. Go back to the standard mode. I'm using primary here, so I don't know if I'm already using that color. Okay, guess I didn't put it on the right place. My mistake. Okay, yes, it's on the feature card button. I shouldn't put it there, maybe. I'm going to use a different color. Let's use that one. Okay. Here we go. Okay, of course, won't apply to those if I don't put it there. So let me just undo what I did. Come on. All right, so want to put it there. Don't know why maybe it was already the wrong color. Okay. So, right, so looks like I don't know. There was supposed to be a default color for the primary, but anyway, there wasn't. So now I have my purple and my yellow on rollover. So as you can see, when we toggle that, it's the same thing as if we choose here the pseudo element, but it's just of course, a shortcut. So if I click on my elements like that, for example, I can have the before, after, I can have the focus active, and so on. So these are those options here. Sorry, video was long and I didn't sleep a lot, so little bit makes from time to time. Element CSS shortcut. New icon popping up in the left panel of each element. Clicking on this icon, open the CSS tab of the current element or class. Okay, I wasn't sure. I had to check. I wasn't sure what it was. This is the little icon that you see here. If I click on that, you see my little element CSS button that is there. If I click on that, it goes directly to my CSS tab for this specific element. So didn't understand what they mean by that. This is what they mean. Okay, that little button, extra button here. Go to parent shortcut. I didn't enable it, but we have a button here that goes to the parent of this element. For example, will be the block. The parent of the block will be the container. So I use always the structure panel, so no need for that button for me. Style overview shortcut. So let's go with the style overview. We already covered that, so don't need to cover that again. Class manager, extract global, and styles, extend. We already cover all of those. Some of them like plain class, pretty basic, so I don't want to go there. Clone class, you can clone a class or copy a class. So we can do that. You can clone a class to create another one with exactly the same styles applied to it. If you want to, just to inverse, for example, on an over or something like that. You can also copy to clipboard to paste it somewhere else. So these are the two elements. Now part of the contextual menu. What we have here at the bottom, we have some default settings. So maybe you have noticed, I don't know if you have noticed, but if I had, for example, a new image here, by default, my image will have a few features attached to it. So first of all, that's a figure tag instead of the regular image tag. Also set to no caption by default. So all of that is because of the settings that we have here. So when we add a basic text by default, it will have the P tag. So you see that I'm using the P tag, paragraph tag. So I don't have to switch that manually. Figure for the HTML that I just showed you, and no caption for images. Set the button for the buttons because that's a link, in fact, that acts as a button. So if you toggle that on, it will put the button tag instead. Set text input as a text area for editing. So maybe you've noticed that, but editing is just one line of text. So if we want to have more space for typing, now it's a text area just like for the regular text. But also it allows me to have this bar here when, of course, the other option is toggled on. So that's pretty good. Set SVG as the default library for icon. I don't want that, so it's not toggled on, but you can set that to be the default behavior. You have the new filter and transition tabs. So filter and transitions here. That has been added with this option. So if I want to do a transition or use some filters here, it's possible to do so. Okay. New class and ID tab is the one here. You can add a CSS class or CSS ID here. You also have that in the CSS by default, but now it's separated here in this specific place. And the overflow control as a drop down. Okay, yeah. Where is the overflow? I think it's here. Visibility, overflow. So by default, you have to type it. You have to type the values that you have in the drop down here. So with this option, you will have a drop down instead, so you can always select it from here. So that's easier if you don't know all the overflow properties, but even if you do know them, clicking and selecting that is going to be a lot easier than to type it. The ones that are in orange means that if you deactivate Advanced Themer, these will stop working. All the others will simply create CSS, so you can always, I don't know if you would want to do that, I don't suggest that you do that, but it's always possible to deactivate Advanced Themer once you have once you're done making the site, and everything will still work because it just generates CSS for you. But those things in orange will stop working if you disable advanced themers. That's why they give you kind of a warning about that. So we have the background click control, the white space control. These are new controls that you have. I think it's background. Is it in the background? There we go. Background clip here. So this is a new menu that has been added by Advanced Themer. So white space control. This is in the text, I guess. So white space, the typography here. Text shadow, text decoration. No, it's not there. White space, white space. Where did it put the white space control? Anyway, not really important to know where it is exactly, but it adds another menu for the white spacing. Uh, Content visibility, content intrinsic size control, column count control. So when you have some, I don't know if it works with basic text, but you do have a column count control. Is that in the, I don't know if it does work with, looks like it doesn't. So let's try to change that to a rich text instead. So word limit here, where's my column count? All right, so for the white space element is here in the miscellaneous section. Just read back the column count. I had that wrong. I thought it was the column count of the text because you can, there's a property in CSS called column count where you can divide a text in two columns. And I thought it was that. So that's why I was searching in the typography. It's not that if I read well, better. Like I said, pretty tired, been a long video. But it just had the count gap field with properties for the column if I set a specific element to be a display block. So for example, if this text here, I have a display block, let's say, can I change it here? Display block, it's already a display block. So what can I change from? Not sure exactly what it's supposed to change here. Too many things. Break control, transform, perspective control. So there we go. Transform here, perspective elements that we had here. Backdrops filter. Don't remember if it's, where is it exactly, but anyway. So a lot of things. I need to read the documentation again. They are adding so many things. I cannot keep up with all the changes, to be quite honest. Backdrop to your filter settings. So where are my filter settings? So filter settings here. We have the filter settings. Backdrop is right there. So don't know exactly what it is about. So more about CSS filter. Didn't work with that previously. So don't know what it does exactly. Templates. It has improved templates a little bit. So we can save thumbnails. So for example, I don't think that I have any templates here. Maybe, oh yeah, I do. That's true. We can generate templates for that and save it here. So let's see if I probably don't have anything in those templates though. This is just placeholders. So let's see if I add, I don't know, an image here, let's say 2 blocks, an image in this one. Let's put everything like that in here. Maybe add a menu, new item, nav menu, let's say. Nav nested menu. Well, we can create it ourselves. Here we go. Okay. This is ACSS, so big space here. Let's say we don't want to have such big spacing. Small one. So we could create an image out of that. And again, this is not something that I really played with, so not sure exactly here. Talking about a container element, so I don't know if it's a container in a page, but you can generate thumbnails here. You can choose a masonry layout for the templates here when you have a thumbnail. Um, sorry. You can select auto image, replace content. Okay, so auto image import. When you import and replace, you see here those two options. Often people forget to select the import images when they import a template, and they have to redo it again. So toggles that on by default. Also replace content. This one is more dangerous. If you had elements like frames, for example, you might not want that. So usually I keep that one toggled off because I don't want to auto replace the content. I want to add to it. The feature image in the column here. So of course, once you generated a thumbnail, you can make it appear here as well to have a little preview of that. Keyboard shortcut, never use that in my case because I have already so many shortcuts to learn, and sometimes it can create conflicts with keyboard shortcut that you might have in your browser. So I don't use them really, honestly. The strict editor view. So this option is if you want to prevent some features from appearing when you are when you have a different role, let's say it like that. Okay. So for example, by default, it works with the brick settings, first of all. So for example, right now, the builder access, I have set administrator, of course, I have full access. Editor, I have set that to edit content, and all the others don't have access at all to Bricks Builder. So they need to have the edit content access. If you give them full access, they will have access to everything, just like an administrator. And of course, if you don't give them access at all, they will not have access to the Bricks Builder. So they need to have the edit content access. And by default, that allows people to see everything and just click on an element and change it, but not add new elements. But with the tools in Advanced Themer, a little bit like BricksForge has something similar to that as well. You can decide what they have access to. Okay, just an editor. So again, those are the options that will simply toggle that on and off. Toolbar, what label, toolbar, and elements, miscellaneous here. Different UI, UX improvement. So that's probably in the element section. So white label allows you to change the look so that they can have a different view when they are an editor. So let me go and activate a little plugin here. Oh, didn't install it. So let me just install it. I had it on the other side, but view admin as, let's install that one. So now if I'm in the builder, if I switch from an admin to editor, you see that I'm limited to what I have access to. First of all, the white label, I have my logo here and a different interface here. So that's because of the white label section. Change the color and the background icon. So when I click on things, you see that I use my blue. So maybe not a good idea here in dark mode, but anyway, you can change that. The toolbars, click on any of the following to hide them. So the ones that are selected are the ones that are hidden. Important because it's not always like that. So I'm hiding the help, settings, dimensions, and edit with WordPress icons. That's why you don't see them here. Okay, I'm hiding few icons. Logo is still there. It's replaced by my logo, by the way. The pages is still there. So pages here. The history revision is still there as well, and so on. So you can decide what they have access to and what they don't. Then you have the element here. So the elements, of course, are the regular elements that we have in the builder. Let me switch back to administrator. So these are all the elements, of course. So again, enabling the following element in strict editor view. All the following checked element, the checked one, will be selectable by your client inside the editor and thus partially editable. All the others will be in read-only mode. So, for example, in this case, I have selected few. All the text elements, the buttons, the image, video, and so on, I have selected. So that means that somebody with the strict editor mode will be able to edit them. So that's why I can come and click on my text here and change the text. I can click my editing here and change the text here. I am, I don't know, different. I don't know if I'm going to be, I won't be. Anyway, different editing. So they can come and change that. They have the toolbar here, by the way, for text. The image, if it is, oh, that's in the editor, so that's why it's not selectable. They can change a button here and so on. So I am a button, let's say buy now. So you see, they can change some content here depending on what is selected. Okay. If I decide, for example, that the buttons are not editable anymore, now I will need to go back here to switch to administrator to be able to save that. Go back to editor. And now I cannot change the text on the buttons anymore because buttons are not editable anymore. The tweaks for editor, okay. Disable all control by default. I'm going to come back to that. I can hide the ID, the data trigger, the text editing toolbar, and so on. Text and editing toolbar is what appears when I'm editing a text. This toolbar. We can hide that if we want to. The dynamic data trigger, of course, if we have the panel, we have the dynamic lightning icon. Structure panel, maybe it's a good idea to hide that if you don't want people to go through this. Reduce left panel visibility, okay, as it says here, it says reduce, but anyway, it will be hidden by default, okay? So that left panel here, and as you can see, it is the case, where we have the elements will be hidden, okay, if we check that, and it will appear if we need it. So for example, if I don't know, I don't have one, but if I select an image and I need to have the settings, more advanced settings, then it will appear, but if not, it will stay hidden. Header and footer edit button, so you know that this is part of the header, for example. So usually when I mouse over that, I have a little edit header button that I can click on and open the header editor. That is gone now since I'm in editor mode, and that is toggled on. Remove template and settings link, so I cannot edit my templates. I cannot edit the settings because all of that is hidden. I can have my own CSS, so if I toggle that on, you see that there are already a bunch of CSS applied for you, but you can add your own as well, just for editors. So I'm going to come back to that, like I said, later on. The elements with left panel visibility enabled. So the elements that I can also have access to the left panel. So let me just go back to administrator and add something like an image so that we can see it better. So let me go there, add an image there. Let's I don't have a bunch of images here, but anyway, let's go with that. All right, so let me switch now to editor. So images are part of what I can edit, if you remember. And it will show my left panel. So if I select that, no left panel, no left panel, but when I click on the image, boom, the left panel opens. So it allows me to change the image and change some settings of the image. Video, same thing. Of course, we can toggle a lot of things if we want to. We decide, we have the control. Now, as you can see, image, I might want to open the image panel, but there's way too much things. I don't want the user to be able to remove the figure tag, for example. I don't want the user to show the caption or maybe add a link, things like that. I don't want the user to be able to have access to all the things in the panel for the image. So what I can do, I'm going to switch back to editor, is to administrator, sorry, is decide what they have access to on an element by element basis. So if I go back to my image here, if I go to my advanced themer menu, we have the select editor setting here, strict editor setting mode. And then we have a little button, as you can see, that shows me what they have access to. Everything that is toggled in yellow like that, they have access to. And if I don't want them to have access to this element, I can toggle all of those off. So that means that they won't be able to change any of those settings. Let's say I hide everything except the image itself. They can change the image, but that's it. Maybe custom alt text is a good thing. I need to go back here and save. Click on my little save setting here, what I just did. And I'm going to save my page just in case and switch back to editor. So now when I click on my image, you see that I can only change the image. I can change the dimension and the custom alt text. A good thing would be to remove those two menus if they are empty, by the way, but Maxim, if you see that. But beside that, you limit what they have access to. Now, going through everything and removing stuff might be a little bit long, okay? So that's why, if I switch back to administrator here, that's why you have this option here, disable everything by default. So it does the opposite. Instead of you having to disable everything that you don't want them to see, everything will be disabled by default, and then you go and enable what you want them to have access to. So if I save that and refresh my builder, it's going to be the opposite. Of course, right now, if I go to editor mode, I will not be able to edit anything because everything is toggled off by default. Now, if I switch back to my strict editor setting, you see that now everything is off. Okay, well, this I did it manually, so it seems that it has kept it. But you see my image here is off. So I just toggle on what I want to keep instead. And let's say if I add, I don't know, button, same thing. Let's say I want them to be able to change a caption. The link makes sense. But let's say that's the only thing that we allow them to change. So we're going to save that. And I'm going to allow them, of course, to see the button, the left panel when they hit the button, because, of course, they won't be able to change those elements if they don't have access to the left panel. So let me switch back to editor. Now, can change everything on my image, and now this is gone, by the way. So looks like when we didn't test it before, but looks like when we disable everything, then it hides the element. Wasn't doing that previously. Good thing. My button, if I click on a button now, oops, did I forget to enable it? Yeah, I forgot to enable it back here. Sorry, I will have to switch back to administrator because I'm not an administrator anymore right here. And save that. Go back to editor, sorry. So now if I click on my button, not only can I change the text here or there, but I can also change my link, destination link, in the menu here. So we have complete control over what they can or cannot do. So that's about it for this section. We also have the AI. If you put your AI key, unfortunately, mine seems to be not corrupted, but looks like I don't have any credit left. But you will be able to do a lot of things in AI. Generate new text, generate images if you have the credits for, uh, generate even some code. So you have the AI button here, Open AI Assistant, and you can do a lot of things with that. And you also have that, as you saw maybe previously, directly here in some content tab, where you can generate content through AI. And extra, you have some resources, and you have the Bricks Lab, which is a website. I don't know. There we go. To give you some tutorials on how to do different things. There are some free, there are some paid. I'm a member of the Bricks Lab community, and I really encourage you to be as well. But there's a lot of things that you can do in Bricks. It helps you. Sredark is a really good guy. And you can always ask him, by the way, for new tutorials. If you need to do something and it's not there, you can always ask them, if you remember, of course, to have a tutorial on a specific topic. They reply very fast, and of course they will point you somewhere or simply say, yes, we're going to create a new tutorial for that. So this one seems to be a free one, by the way. But let's say if you choose another one, then sometimes you're going to see that they are not complete. This one seems to be a free one as well. Wow. You have access to a lot of things. Um, mm, 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 mm. This, well. Right, so this is a pro one. It mentions here that, well, this one is pretty long, so you still have a bunch of stuff, but it mentions that it's a pro tutorial, so you need to have an account. So not all the steps will be visible for you if you don't have a pro account. But as you saw, there's a lot of content that is also free. And the pro access now, you have the LTD that is at $4.50, or you have a yearly membership as well. And by the way, that's it for the Advanced Teamer. And Advanced Teamer itself, right now, has a new LTD offer, lifetime deal offer for only a limited time. As we speak, it's only from, it has started yesterday, April 12th, and it should be at least for 1 week. Can be more or not. They will tell people 48 hours in advance, probably in their Facebook group, but they can remove it anytime. So might not be there when you watch that video. But you have different pricing that are going to change, by the way. It will be raised on April 19th. So those will not change. Those prices will rise on April 19th to those value. If you buy it before that, you will lock the price for every year, forever. If you want to buy the LTD, there's no limit because it might be 1 week, it might be more. So that option might not be available when you watch a video, but right now it is available at $369 for a lifetime, unlimited lifetime deal. So I really highly encourage you to buy it if you don't already have one. If you already have one license, by the way, a different license, you can always upgrade to the lifetime deal and you will only pay the difference. For example, if you have the unlimited license at $119, you only pay the difference, which is $250. I don't know if it depends on the amount of time that rests on your account, by the way, of course. If you do it on day one, then it's going to be $250. If you have just 1 day left in your subscription, they might simply charge you the $369. I don't know. So you go to your account, you click on the upgrade option, and you will see the price for you. And every new account, not upgrade, but every new account has a 30 days money back guarantee. So even the lifetime deal. So really encourage you to go there. I don't have an affiliate link. I don't even know if there's an affiliate link. I do that just because I love the product. So if you like the video, I know it's really long, always, again, but I want to show detailed option If you want to have short videos, really encourage you to go with Paul Shorten, Paul C, in his channel WP Tuts. But hopefully, when you want to have more detailed tutorial, see turn every stone, see all the options, then I'm here for that. So have a good day, and of course, hopefully subscribe to the channel, put a like as well, and put the comments down below, and have a great day. Thank you.